Let me take you somewhere quiet for a moment. Just you, me, and a truth you might have forgotten in the noise. Close your eyes, take a breath, really a full breath, in through your nose, hold it, out, slow, feel that. That's you, the part of you that's always been there under the pressure, under the deadlines, under the speed. That's the part we're going to talk to today, because somewhere along the way, this world convinced you that faster was better, and you believed it. So did I. We were raised on fast forward. We learned to skim before we learned to read deeply. We were handed phones before we were handed patience. And slowly, without even noticing, we built lives around urgency instead of depth. Wake up, check, phone, scroll, consume, rush, reply, react, perform, pretend, crash, repeat, and we wonder why we feel so disconnected, so tired, so numb, so behind, even when we're doing everything right. But here's the truth you've been needing. You were not built to sprint through life. You were made for rhythm, for breath, for slow mornings, for honest conversations, for deep, sacred repetition. But we've forgotten how. So today, let's start remembering. I want to tell you about a night I'll never forget. It was a Thursday late. I was exhausted, not from movement, but from mental noise. You know the kind. Too many tabs open, too many unfinished to-dos, too many people expecting answers, too many pieces of me scattered in other people's timelines. I sat on my bed and thought, why does this feel like a race I didn't sign up for? And then I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I turned my phone off. Not silent, not do not disturb, off. And for a moment, I panicked, because silence, real silence, reveals things. It shows you the ache you've been running from, the grief you haven't named, the loneliness behind the performance, the exhaustion masked as ambition, and it whispered something I hadn't let myself hear. You're not behind, you're just tired, and you're allowed to slow down. See, no one claps when you choose stillness. No one throws you a party for canceling plans, or taking a breath, or saying I need rest. But that's where healing begins. That's where wisdom grows. That's where depth is born. In the quiet, not the rush. Let's talk about mastery. We admire masters. The pianist who plays with their eyes closed. The chef who doesn't need a recipe. The artist who makes it look easy. But what we forget is what made them great. Repetition, stillness, slowness, hours alone with one scale, one stroke, one flavor, one breath. They didn't chase fireworks. They chased foundation. And that's what most of us are missing. We're building skyscrapers without pouring concrete. We want to be wise without listening. We want to lead without learning. We want to be confident without confronting our own insecurities. But life doesn't work that way. If you want depth, you have to dig. And digging is slow, messy, uncomfortable, but it's real. Do you want to know why everything feels like it's slipping through your fingers? It's because you were never meant to hold so much at once. Your brain, it's not meant to juggle 42 things before noon. Your soul, it's not designed to be seen by thousands of people a day. Your heart, it can't keep opening and closing at the speed of scrolls and swipes. So if you feel like you're breaking, you're not weak, you're wise. Your body is trying to protect you from a pace that's unsustainable. It's saying, slow down, or I will slow you down for you. And you've seen it. In the burnout, in the anxiety, in the tears that come for no reason, in the days you feel numb no matter how much you do. That's your body begging for rhythm again. Not more, not louder, not faster, just rhythm. Let me ask you something. When's the last time you really focused? Not just I'm here, but fully here. Present, engaged still. Can you remember? Or has everything become another checkbox? We read the first 2 pages of a book and call it finished. We watch 30-second videos and call it learning. We bounce from conversation to conversation and wonder why none of them feel true. Because we're skimming our lives. And deep down we know it. That's why we feel empty. Not because we're lazy, not because we're broken, but because we're malnourished, fed on noise, hungry for meaning. Let me offer you something radical. Don't speed up, slow down, relearn. The art of one thing at a time, one task, one sentence, one step, one breath. And when your brain screams, but we're falling behind, you remind it, no, we're finally catching up to ourselves. It will feel weird at first to sit with a single idea, to do one thing without a dozen tabs open, to say no to urgency, to stop treating yourself like a machine, but give it time, because buried under your restlessness is a truth. You already know, you were never meant to go this fast. The world doesn't need a faster you, it needs a fuller you, a deeper you, a present you. And that version, they only show up when you slow down long enough to hear them whisper, I'm still here. Let's go deeper this time. Let's start here. Have you ever felt like you're running a race you never signed up for? Like every morning, the world throws a starter pistol in the air and yells, go. Before you've even had your coffee, you rush to respond, rush to update, rush to prove that you're still in the game, and somewhere along the way, you forget to ask, do I even want to win this? I remember a day not long ago when I caught myself standing in my kitchen, staring blankly into the fridge, not because I was hungry, not because I was thinking about what to eat, but because I couldn't remember why I walked there in the first place. My body was moving, but my mind wasn't with it. I had been jumping from screen to screen, task to task, distraction to distraction, for hours, and somewhere in all of that motion, I lost the thread of myself. Do you know that feeling, where everything feels like a blur, where even your memories feel pixelated? That's the price of speed. It blurs you, it scatters you, it makes you forget the parts of you that know how to live. Let me give you a truth that changed my life. Fast doesn't equal full. You can go through your entire day and feel like nothing actually happened. You can have 100 conversations and still feel unseen. You can check off a whole to-do list and still feel unfulfilled, because motion does not equal meaning, and speed does not equal success. We've been taught to move faster, do more, keep up, but at what cost? At the cost of depth, at the cost of clarity, at the cost of yourself. And here's the kicker, most of the world won't applaud you for slowing down. They'll say you're falling behind, they'll call you lazy, they'll think you're not hungry enough, but they don't know what you know. They don't know that slowness is strength, that presence is a kind of power, that being rooted is harder and holier than being busy. Let's talk about learning. We live in a world where learning has become performative. We post quotes instead of sitting with them. We read summaries instead of living the books. We listen to podcasts at 2x speed and call it deep work. But we're not absorbing, we're consuming. Like fast food for the mind. Quick, addictive, but ultimately empty. And then we wonder, why doesn't anything stick? Why do we forget what we just read, just heard, just said? Because we're skimming the surface. We're gliding over wisdom like stones on a lake. We never stay long enough in one place to sink. Here's the truth. Repetition is the only way anything meaningful takes root. Not hearing it once, not understanding it in theory, but returning to it, living it, failing at it, trying again. The pianist doesn't learn a sonata by playing it once. They learn it by breaking it into pieces, by practicing one measure again and again and again, until it becomes part of their body, until it becomes muscle memory, until it plays through them. And that's how you change to . Not by big, flashy breakthroughs, but by repetition. You want to change your mindset. Repeat gratitude daily, even when you don't feel like it. You want to build confidence. Repeat small wins. Celebrate them, even when no one else notices. You want to become more focused. Repeat saying no to noise, to unnecessary meetings, to things that aren't aligned with where you're going. Not once, not for a week, forever. Because growth isn't a one-time act, it's a lifestyle now. You might be wondering, but how do I slow down when life doesn't let me? And I hear you. There are jobs to keep, bills to pay, kids to feed, deadlines that don't care about your spiritual awakening. But let me tell you this, slowness doesn't mean quitting. Slowness means doing one thing with your whole self, not 10 things with half your heart. Slowness means washing the dishes and actually feeling the water. It means looking someone in the eyes when you talk to them. It means walking without your phone, even if it's just to the mailbox. It means breathing before reacting, and you'd be amazed how those tiny shifts create massive clarity. You'll start to notice things you forgot. How to see, the way light moves across your room at 3 p.m., the sound of your own breath when you're not holding it in, the way food tastes when you're not eating with your scroll, the way your body talks to you when you actually listen. That's the world coming back into focus. That's you returning to yourself, and that's the foundation for everything you're trying to build. Because here's the truth most people miss. You don't need more time. You need more presence in the time you already have. Let me leave you with this for today. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not lazy for needing rest. You are not unmotivated for wanting to go slower. You're a human, with a heart, with a soul, with a rhythm that doesn't fit in someone else's productivity chart. So let the world rush you. Walk slowly, breathe deeply, repeat what matters, and become masterful in your stillness. Because at the end of it all, you won't be remembered for how fast you moved. You'll be remembered for how deeply you lived. Let me tell you something strange that happened the other day. I was brushing my teeth, something I've done maybe 10,000 times in my life. Same toothbrush, same 2 minutes, same up down, side dash, side dot. But that morning, for some reason, I actually noticed it. I noticed how the bristles felt against my gums. I noticed how cold the water was. I noticed how my shoulders were tense, how I was rushing without realizing it. I noticed myself, actually noticed myself. And I remember thinking, how many moments like this have I rushed through? Completely asleep. We don't miss our lives in the big ways. We miss them in the tiny ones, in the skipped glances, in the quick meals, in the half-listened conversations, in the moments we deem too ordinary to matter. But let me ask you something. What if the ordinary is where your soul lives? There's a myth we've all been sold, that meaning has to be dramatic, that life has to be epic, that purpose comes in a lightning strike. But what if the most sacred things in your life right now are the ones you keep overlooking? The cup of tea you sip at the same time every evening, the walk you take with your dog on that same little path, the sound of your child's laugh, same, but always a little different. The moment you lay down at night and exhale for the first time all day, that's not nothing. That's your everything. And when you slow down long enough to feel it, to see it, to repeat it with presence, that's when life starts to taste real again. Let's talk about repetition. Most people see it as boring. Repetitive equals dull, monotonous, uninspired. But repetition isn't the enemy. Repetition is the teacher. Think about it. How did you learn to walk? Not by trying once, not by thinking about it. You tried, you fell, you cried, you got up, and then you did it again, and again, and again. You repeated the process of falling until balance became your default, until your body understood something your brain couldn't yet explain. That's the power of repetition. It bypasses performance. It builds patterns, not patterns for the world to admire, but patterns your nervous system can trust. That's why the gym works. Not because you lift the heaviest weight once, but because you show up regularly and ask your body to remember, we're strong now. That's why meditation works. Not because you sit perfectly still for an hour, but because you keep returning breath after breath to this moment. That's why therapy works. Not because of one breakthrough session, but because you revisit your wounds with safety and courage until the shame dissolves. It's not the intensity that changes you, it's the consistency. But that's not sexy. That doesn't go viral. That doesn't get applause, so we overlook it. And in doing so, we overlook our lives. Let me ask you something vulnerable. When's the last time you kept a promise to yourself? Not a big one. Not a new year, new me kind of thing. A small one. I'll stretch for 5 minutes each morning. I'll read 1 page before bed. I'll go outside for 10 minutes. I'll write down one thing I'm proud of every night. Did you keep it? Or did it get pushed aside for something louder? Because here's the quiet truth. Your confidence is built in the background. In the small repetitions no one sees. In the tiny promises you keep when no one's watching. That's where trust grows. Not in the spotlight, but in the daily repetition of self-respect. And if you've lost that trust, you can rebuild it. One breath at a time. One habit at a time. One quiet eye showed up today at a time. Let's talk about mastery. We often think mastery is some finish line, some arrival point where we finally know it all. But real mastery is different. Real mastery is when you've done something so often, with such intention, that it becomes part of who you are. Not because you forced it, but because you repeated it with love. The martial artist bows before entering the mat every single time. The violinist tunes her instrument before every performance, even when it's already in tune. The monk sweeps the same floor every day, not because it's dirty, but because he is. These aren't chores, they're rituals. And rituals are what give repetition its power. You know what else repetition does? It reveals you. When you repeat something, day after day, you can't help but bump into your resistance. You'll notice the excuses that show up. You'll see your moods. You'll encounter your impatience. You'll face your perfectionism. Repetition is like a mirror. The longer you stare into it, the more honest you have to become. And that's where the real growth starts. Not when you like what you see, but when you accept it and show up anyway. That's when you start to build something deeper than motivation. You build integrity. And integrity, my friend, is the quiet foundation under every truly great life. But it takes time. You can't microwave wisdom. You can't download character. You can't hack soul. You have to live your way into it. Slowly, repetitively, deliberately. And some days, it'll feel pointless. Some days you'll want to skip it, to quit, to say, this isn't working. But on those days, remember this: the work is working on you, even when you don't feel it. Because repetition doesn't just build habits, it builds you. So here's what I want you to do this week. Pick one thing, just one dot. Make it small, make it doable, make it quiet, but show up for it every day, no matter how you feel, no matter who's watching. And not because you need a result, but because you want to build a route, a ritual, a rhythm, a relationship with yourself. That's how you come back home, not in a rush, but in repetition. Let me leave you with this. Before we move on, the life you're craving isn't on the other side of more. It's on the other side of again, doing it again, showing up again, starting over again, loving yourself again, trying again. That's not weakness. That's not failure. That's the art of becoming. And becoming is slow. Becoming is quiet. Becoming is repetitive. But becoming is also sacred. And you're doing it one slow, steady step at a time. There is a kind of stillness that feels empty, awkward. Even it's the kind of stillness we fill with noise. We turn on a podcast while brushing our teeth. We scroll Instagram while eating. We listen to music, watch videos, tap notifications, not because we need the content, but because the quiet feels uncomfortable. We're afraid of what the stillness might say, so we drown it out before it can speak. But let me tell you a truth. I've learned the hard way. The stillness is not your enemy. The stillness is where your soul whispers what the world has been yelling over. Let me take you back. I was sitting alone at a lake once. No phone, no music, just wind and water. At first it felt wrong. My fingers twitched for my phone. My brain raced. I should be doing something. This is wasting time. I should be productive. But then something happened. About 10 minutes in, my breathing changed. My shoulders dropped. The chatter in my head started to fade. And a strange thought surfaced. When did I become afraid of peace? We talk a lot about burnout these days. How to avoid it, how to manage it, how to bounce back from it. But do you know what causes burnout at its core? It's not just too much work. It's too little meaning. Too much output without any inner input. Too much doing without being. Too much speed without presence. We run ourselves ragged trying to keep up. But we never stop to ask what we're trying to keep up with. And then the crash comes, and we wonder why we feel lost. Stillness doesn't mean doing nothing. Stillness means rooting yourself, coming back to the core, remembering what matters, hearing your own voice, not the algorithms, not the crowds, not the culture. Single quotes is yours. And that voice, it doesn't shout, it whispers. You can't hear it while sprinting. You hear it when you slow down. Let's talk about how the mind works. Your brain isn't designed for constant switching. It needs rhythm, repetition, space to think, to digest, to connect. Imagine pouring water into a glass that already has holes punched in it. That's what multitasking does to your mind. Every new notification, a hole. Every switch of attention, another whole. And we wonder why we feel drained by noon. We think we need more energy, more time, more tools. But what we really need is less leaking, fewer holes. And that begins with reclaiming your focus, which can only happen when you slow down. I want to invite you into a different kind of productivity, a quieter one, a deeper one that asks, what matters right now? Not, what can I cram into this hour? Because not all productivity is created equal. You can spend 8 hours reacting to everyone else's priorities, or you can spend 1 hour deeply, slowly, intentionally doing something that nourishes your soul. And only one of those things will make you feel alive. You want to know the most powerful force in learning, not IQ, not talent, not genius. Genius, it's deliberate repetition, doing the same thing with presence, over and over, not because you're stupid, but because you understand that mastery lives in the muscle memory of your attention. Let me give you an example. When I first started journaling, I thought it was pointless. I'd write the same things over and over. I'm tired. I feel stuck. I wish I was further along. Over and over. But then something shifted. I began to notice patterns. The days I wrote, I feel stuck, always followed a week of zero rest. The days I felt empty came after I spent too much time online. The days I felt alive had one thing in common: slowness, walks, books, conversations, space. That's when it clicked. Repetition isn't about redundancy. Repetition is how you reveal the truth. We're told to always chase new goals, new hacks, new methods, new books. But new is not always better. Deeper is better. Wiser is better. Slower is better. Sometimes the breakthrough doesn't come from learning something new. It comes from finally understanding what you've already heard 100 times. You don't need another book on boundaries. You need to practice. 1. You don't need another video about morning routines. You need to actually do yours with consistency. You don't need another meditation app. You need to sit, breathe, and stay. Let's talk about the fear of being left behind, because that's what makes us rush, isn't it? We think, if I slow down, I'll fall behind. If I rest, I'll lose momentum. If I don't keep up, they'll forget me. But let me ask you this: behind who? Behind what? What race are you running, and who told you it was yours? You're not behind. You're on a different path, and different paths have different speeds. The oak tree doesn't look at the bamboo and say, I should grow faster. It stays rooted. It grows slowly. And in time, it becomes something unshakable. So will you, but only if you stop rushing the process. Let me give you something practical. Here's a rhythm. You can try. The rule of 1. 1 goal per day. 1 deep breath before you start. 1 task at a time. 1 moment of stillness when you finish. 1 reflection before bed. That's it. It's not flashy. It won't impress anyone on social media, but it will center you. It will bring you back to now, and now is where your life is actually happening. So let me ask you again, are you willing to slow down? Not just for a weekend, not just for a retreat, but as a way of being. Because the life you're craving, the peace, the clarity, the connection, it's not hiding in more effort, it's waiting in the stillness. And the more you return to it, the more it will return to you. Let me tell you something nobody tells you when you start healing. It's boring, it's quiet, it's invisible, it's thankless. There are no fireworks, no standing ovations, no gold stars. It's just you and the work, the real work, the kind you do when no one is looking, the kind that doesn't show up in before and after photos. You wake up one day and decide, I want to be better. So you start small. You set your alarm 10 minutes earlier. You drink a glass of water. You take a deep breath before speaking. You say no to something that used to own you, and nothing happens. No one claps. No one cheers. The world stays the same, and you wonder, is this even working? Let me tell you, it is. Because this is the part of the journey no one glamorizes. The part where nothing changes. Except you. We're taught to chase results. To measure progress in pounds lost, money gained, followers added, boxes checked. But some of the most important progress in your life can't be seen in numbers. How many times you didn't react in anger? How many times you stayed instead of ran? How many times you kept your promise to yourself quietly? How many times you chose love when fear would have been easier? That doesn't show up on a graph, but it shows up in your character. And that kind of growth, it's slow, it's repetitive, it's real. Let's talk about resistance. You know it. It's that feeling of I don't want to do this today. The voice that says, just skip it. You're tired. What's the point? One day off won't matter. That voice, it's not evil. It's scared. It's scared of change. Scared of discomfort. Scared of the unknown. Because repetition leads to transformation. And transformation threatens the version of you that's been keeping you safe. So of course there's resistance. Of course it feels hard. But hear me, every time you do the hard thing, you teach your nervous system that growth is safe. And eventually, what once felt impossible becomes your new normal. I remember a season when I felt stuck. I was doing all the right things, waking up early, eating clean, journaling, working out, meditating. But I felt nothing, no breakthroughs, no joy, just numb. I thought I was doing something wrong, but what I didn't realize is that numbness was part of the process. I was detoxing from chaos, from years of adrenaline, from a life built on speed and stress, and my body, it needed to learn stillness. It needed to learn that calm didn't mean danger. That quiet didn't mean failure. That repetition wasn't punishment, it was reprogramming, you see. Real healing feels anticlimactic. It feels like making tea instead of reaching for wine. It feels like going for a walk instead of yelling. It feels like writing down your feelings instead of sending the angry text. It feels like choosing the long road, even when the shortcut is tempting. And every time you choose that, you rewire yourself, not instantly, but gradually, beautifully, permanently. Let's talk about trust, not with others, with yourself, because that's what all of this is about, right? Learning to trust yourself again, to believe that you'll show up, to believe that your word matters even when no one else hears it. But trust isn't built in big promises. It's built in small repetitions. Brushing your teeth when you said you would, going to bed when you said you would, resting when your body asked, moving when your soul said go. It's boring, it's quiet, it's sacred, and over time, it turns into confidence, not the loud performative kind, but the quiet kind that says, I know who I am because I've been with me through it all. Let me give you an image. Imagine a tree dot. It doesn't grow faster because you yell at it. It doesn't sprout taller because you compare it to others. It doesn't get stronger because you check on it every 5 minutes. It grows because it's rooted, because it's consistent, because it shows up to the sun and the soil, day after day. That's you. That's your growth. You don't need to force it. You need to trust it. And trust is built in repetition. You know what makes repetition powerful? Intention. Repetition without intention is a rut. Repetition with intention is a ritual. So if you're stuck in the same patterns, ask yourself, am I repeating this out of fear or love? Am I choosing this because it's familiar or because it's true? Is this habit building me or draining me? And when the answer hurts, when you realize you've been choosing comfort over growth, don't shame yourself. Just begin again. That's the power of repetition. It gives you the chance to restart as many times as you need. Let me tell you something tender. You are not broken for needing reminders. You're not behind for forgetting what you already learned. You're not weak for needing to hear it again and again and again. That's how humans work. We forget, we drift, we lose our way, and then we come back, not once, but over and over. That's what makes the journey sacred. Not that you never stray, but that you always return. So here's my invitation. Instead of chasing the next big thing, what if you just stayed here, with the breath, with the moment, with the habit, with the truth? What if you honored the small, quiet repetitions that no one sees but you know matter? Because one day, you'll look up and realize you're stronger, softer, clearer, calmer, kinder. Not because of some grand breakthrough, but because you stayed, you kept showing up, and that changes everything. There's a moment, it comes quietly, when you realize the old version of you is gone. Not in some dramatic explosion, not in a final goodbye, but in the subtlest way. You respond differently to a situation you would have exploded in. You let go of a grudge you carried like a second skin. You walk away from chaos without apologizing for your peace. And in that moment, something inside you whispers, you're not who you used to be. But here's the thing most people won't tell you. Growth doesn't feel like growth when it's happening. It feels like repetition. It feels like silence. It feels like choosing the same hard thing over and over again, without knowing if it's working. But it is. Because repetition is the sound of your soul rewriting its story. And healing happens in the echo. Let me explain. You know that feeling when you say something kind to yourself and it feels fake. You look in the mirror and say, I'm proud of you, and something inside winces. That's the echo of the old voice, the one that used to say, you're not enough. You'll never get it right. Why even try? That voice is old, but echoes don't disappear overnight. They fade through repetition. Every time you say something new, something true, the echo gets quieter, until one day, you say I'm proud of you, and your body believes it. That's healing, and it's slower than you want, but more permanent than you can imagine. There was a time when I thought healing meant forgetting. If I still felt pain, I must not be healed. If I still cried, I must not be whole. If I still struggled, I must be broken. But that's not healing. Healing doesn't erase the wound. It teaches you how to live with the scar. To honor it. To say, this hurt, and I'm still here. To look your past in the face and whisper, you don't get to define me anymore. And that strength, that quiet, steady strength, it's built in repetition. Let's talk about triggers, the things that make your heart race, the people who make your palms sweat, the places that make your body feel unsafe. Even if your mind says you're fine, you don't heal by avoiding them forever. You heal by meeting them differently. But that doesn't happen in a day. It happens the 50th time you take a breath instead of yelling, the 100th time you stay when you want to run, the 1000th time you choose peace over performance. Each time, a layer of fear dissolves, and slowly, you realize you're not at war with yourself anymore. But there's another kind of echo I want to tell you about. The echo of love, you see. Every time you choose to love yourself, even when it feels awkward, that love doesn't disappear, it echoes, and maybe, in the moment, you don't feel it. Maybe it feels hollow, forced, but it's planting something. And one day, when you're not even trying, you'll find yourself naturally speaking to yourself with kindness. You'll make a mistake and say, "It's okay, I'm learning." You'll see a photo of yourself and not flinch. You'll rest without guilt. You'll enjoy your own company. And that won't be an accident. That will be the echo of every loving word, every gentle breath, every moment of rest you gave yourself, repeating itself back to you. Let me give you an image. Imagine a canyon. You shout into it. And what do you hear? Your own voice, bouncing back. That's how your soul works. The more often you speak truth into it. I am enough. I am safe. I am loved. I belong. The more that truth comes back to you. At first, it's faint, unbelievable, like a whisper on the wind. But over time, the echo strengthens, and one day, you won't just hear it, you'll know it. That's the power of repetition. Let's talk about returning, because that's what repetition really is, right? A returning to the breath, to the truth, to the practice, to the self. And we resist returning because we think it means we failed. I shouldn't need to be reminded again. I already dealt with this. I should be past this. But healing isn't linear. It's cyclical, spiral-shaped, like the rings of a tree. You return, not to stay stuck, but to go deeper. Each time you circle back, you bring new awareness, new strength, and that's not failure. That's refinement. Think of a song you love. Did you fall in love with it on the first listen? Or did it sink into your soul after the 3rd, the 10th, the 100th? Each replay revealed something new. A lyric you didn't catch. A harmony that gave you chills. A beat that made you move. That's how truth works. 2. You don't absorb it all at once. You live with it, sit with it, repeat it until it becomes your background music. And one day, it's not just a song you love, it's a song you are. Let me tell you something I learned the hard way. There is no final version of you. There is no day you'll wake up and say, "I've arrived, I'm done." There will always be another layer, another lie to unlearn, another truth to anchor in, another edge to soften. And that's not discouraging. That's human. We are meant to evolve, to deepen, to expand. And the way we do that, repetition, reflection, returning. Again and again and again. So if today feels like yesterday, if the progress feels invisible, if the echoes of your past are still louder than the truths you're trying to learn, don't give up. Stay. Breathe. Repeat. Trust. Because healing isn't loud. It's not fast. It's not always obvious. But it is happening. In the echoes. In the rhythms. In the sacred, silent repetitions that no one sees but you. And those echoes, they're building a new home inside you. A home where you are welcome. A home where you are safe. A home where you belong, just as you are. There's a version of you that's waiting. Not waiting for the perfect opportunity. Not waiting for external validation. Not even waiting for more knowledge. They're just waiting for you. To slow down enough to hear them, to remember. To notice. To begin. Not with fireworks. Not with applause. But with the quietest words you've ever whispered. This is who I am now. It starts like this. One morning you wake up, and instead of reaching for your phone, you sit for a moment, and you breathe. That's it. That's the first step. Because you can't change what you won't face, and you can't meet yourself if you're always running from the room. Let's talk about becoming. It's a buzzword now, isn't it? We're always becoming. We hear it everywhere. Instagram captions, motivational quotes, podcasts. But most people talk about becoming like it's this wild, powerful force that strikes one day like lightning. Like you wake up, rip the covers off, and bam, you're a new person, confident, disciplined, free. But that's not how it works. Becoming is 100,000 tiny decisions that no one else sees. It's the moment you close your mouth instead of clapping back. The moment you turn off the noise and sit in the silence. The moment you show up for a habit even when it's boring. The moment you admit, I don't know who I am anymore, and begin again anyway. Becoming isn't glamorous, it's awkward, it's uncomfortable, it's messy. Because to become someone new, you have to grieve the old version, and grief doesn't move quickly. You're saying goodbye to parts of you that once protected you, parts that once kept you safe. Even if they kept you small, you might miss them, even the pain, even the chaos, even the drama you swore you were done with. Why? Because it's familiar, and familiarity feels like safety, even when it's not. This is why most people don't change, not because they're lazy, not because they don't want to, but because the space between who they were and who they want to become feels like death, and in some ways, it is. The death of people-pleasing, the death of addiction to approval, the death of running from yourself. It's hard, but what rises from that death? Life. Real life, not curated, not filtered, not hustled for, but lived, from the inside out. Let's talk about that. Inner voice again. You know the one. The voice that whispers, this is what you really want. This is who you really are. This is what you came here to do. You can't hear it in the rush. You can't hear it in the noise. You can only hear it when you slow down. Because that voice, it speaks in repetition, like the waves kissing the shore, like the wind brushing through the trees, like your own breath, rising, falling, rising, falling. Over and over, not shouting. But always there. There's a moment in the becoming journey where you want to quit, not because you don't believe it's possible, but because you've been doing the work, and the outside hasn't caught up yet. You're waking up early, you're reading, you're meditating, you're speaking kindly to yourself, you're healing, you're growing, but life still looks the same job, the same bills, the same relationships, and you think, what's the point? But listen to me. The outside always lags behind the inside, always. But if you stay, if you keep walking, one day you'll look around and realize the outside did change, not because it transformed overnight, but because you did. And now, you see differently, you choose differently, you show up differently, and that difference, it ripples. There's a version of you that no one has met yet, because you haven't met them yet. They're not louder, they're not shinier, they're not perfect, but they are clearer, more grounded, more present, more aligned. And every time you choose stillness over distraction, every time you choose to repeat what matters instead of chase what doesn't, you get one step closer, not in miles, but in integrity, in likes, but in peace, not in speed, but in solidity. Let's talk about slowness one more time. Slowness isn't a punishment, it's an invitation. To feel, to listen, to participate, to be here now. Because if you're always rushing to the next chapter, you'll miss the paragraph that would have changed everything. This moment, right here, as you read these words, this is your life, not the next milestone, not the next achievement. So breathe, soften, receive it, and repetition. It's not a detour, it's the path. Every time you return to the breath, you remember your power. Every time you return to the truth, you remember your purpose. Every time you return to the ritual, you remember your root. This is how you become, not all at once, but breath by breath, step by step, day by ordinary day, until one day, you catch your reflection in a window. You pause, and you smile, because you finally recognize the person staring back at you. And not only do you love them, you know them. There's a moment, it doesn't come loudly, when you realize you've stopped trying to prove something. You're not hustling for worth, not rushing to fix, not aching to be seen. You're just here, breathing, living, rooted in the stillness you once ran from. And that's when it hits you. The version of you that was built on noise is gone. The version being rebuilt in the quiet is stronger than you ever imagined. Let's talk about that. Quiet. Most people don't realize how loud they'd been living until they stop. Until they turn off the notifications, until they pause the playlists, until they stopped filling every silence with words, every space with motion. And then they sit there in the quiet, in the truth, and for a while, it feels unbearable, because quiet reveals what the noise covered up. The grief, the longing, the regret, the shame, the parts of you that still believe they're unlovable. But hear me, quiet doesn't create pain. Quiet reveals it so it can be healed. Healing requires honesty, and honesty takes space. You can't rush a wound into closing. You can't schedule your soul into wholeness. You have to make room. You have to wait. You have to listen. And that listening, it happens through repetition, not once, not in a weekend retreat, but day by day, breath by breath, return after return, until your inner world begins to sound more like home than war. Let's talk about emotional repetition. We're all carrying emotional scripts we didn't write. I'm too much. I don't matter. If I slow down, I'll be left behind. If I rest, I'll fall apart. These aren't facts. They're echoes, repetitions from childhood, from trauma, from a culture that rewards burnout and punishes boundaries. And the only way to rewrite those scripts, repetition, intentional, tender, consistent. It's not about shouting affirmations you don't believe. It's about speaking small truths over and over until they feel true. I am safe now. I don't have to earn rest. Slowness is sacred. I belong to myself. Say it again and again and again until the old echo fades and a new one takes its place. There's a sacredness in simple routines. The cup of tea you make at the same time each morning, the stretch before bed, the handwritten note you leave yourself on the fridge, the quiet walk where you don't need answers, just your own breath in the air. These things might look small, but they're not. They're anchors, tiny repetitions that remind your nervous system, we're safe now, we're steady now, we're home. The world will try to convince you otherwise, that healing has to be dramatic, that growth must be seen, that change only counts if it's loud. But you know the truth now, don't you? The most powerful transformations happen in private, in the silent, repeated return to what matters. Let me share a story. There was a woman who had been through a decade of burnout. She didn't remember how to be still. Stillness felt like suffocation. Movement, even meaningless, felt like control. Until one day, she broke. Not in a single moment, but over time. Exhaustion, disconnection, emptiness that sleep and screens couldn't fill. She tried everything. New books, new discs, new therapists. Nothing landed until she did one thing differently. She sat on her porch every morning for 10 minutes. No phone, no journal, no music, just her and the air. And she did it again the next day, and the next, and the next. No expectations, just presence. A year later, someone asked her, "When did things change for you?" She said, "When I finally stopped running from myself." Stillness is not a void. Stillness is an invitation to come back to the parts of you that never needed fixing, the parts that are already whole, already wise, already enough. But they whisper, and if your life is too loud, you'll miss them. So you have to choose to listen, to come back, to repeat the return over and over until their voice becomes louder than fear. Let's talk about fatigue, not just physical tiredness, soul tiredness, the kind of exhaustion that doesn't go away with sleep, the kind that comes from constantly managing, performing, pretending. If you feel that, I want you to know, you're not broken, you're overextended. Your nervous system is begging you to come home, to stop outsourcing your worth, to stop measuring your value in metrics, to stop sprinting toward an undefined finish line. Fatigue is not a failure, it's a message. And when you honor that message, when you begin to rest, slowly, deliberately, repetitively, you begin to heal. Let's end here for now with something simple. You're not late. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're just remembering that your worth isn't in what you produce. Your value isn't in how fast you grow. Your success isn't in how loud you are. Your power is in your return. Your slowness, your softness, your stillness. That is where the rebuilding begins, and you're already doing it, so keep going. There will come a day, not marked on any calendar, when you open your eyes and feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Space. Not silence, not stillness, not even peace, just space. Inside your body, inside your thoughts, inside your heart. A softness where there used to be tension, a breath where there used to be bracing, a freedom where there used to be fear. And you won't know how to describe it at first, because you didn't expect healing to feel this quiet. There's a strange kind of disorientation that happens when you finally feel safe, when you've spent years in survival mode thinking, bracing, fixing, proving, and suddenly, you realize there's nothing chasing you anymore, no one to impress, no emergency to solve, no performance too perfect, just you here now, and it's jarring. You want to do something to find the next fire, to make sure you haven't missed a threat, because your body doesn't yet believe it's over. So what do? You pause, and you whisper, "We're safe now," again, and again, and again, until your body starts to believe it. Let's talk about what freedom really feels like. Most people think it feels like shouting, dancing, throwing your arms wide to the sky. And sometimes, yes it does, but often freedom feels like less urgency, less proving, less pleasing, less noise, less trying to be something for someone else. Freedom isn't always about doing more. Sometimes it's about no longer doing what was never yours to carry. That's why it can feel so strange. You've dropped the weights, but your muscles are still tense. You're allowed to feel awkward. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to not know what to do with peace at first. Just don't run from it, because the peace that feels foreign now will soon become your native language. I want to talk to the version of you who's still waiting for the validation, the success, the moment that makes it all make sense. Here's the truth. There is no single moment. There's no mountaintop where it all becomes easy. No applause loud enough to fill the ache. No achievement big enough to end the doubt forever. Because what you're really looking for isn't out there, it's already here. And it comes from within, from the quiet power of saying, "I don't need to be anything more than who I am." Right now, that sentence, you might need to say it 1,000 times before you believe it, but say it anyway. That's how it becomes real. Let's talk about softness. Softness isn't weakness. Softness isn't passivity. Softness isn't failure. Softness is power, redefined. It's the power to say no without guilt, to rest without apology, to listen without defensiveness, to feel without drowning. Softness is what happens when you stop bracing for impact. And that softness, it doesn't arrive through force, it arrives through practice. Every time you unclench your jaw, every time you place your hand on your chest and breathe, every time you remind yourself, "I'm safe," you create a little more room for softness. And in that softness, something radical begins to grow. Trust, not in the world, not even in others, but in yourself. You're not who you used to be, and you're not yet who you're becoming. You're somewhere in between, and that space deserves reverence. Because this in-between is sacred. It's the space where you're unbecoming what the world told you to be, and slowly, gently, becoming what you were always meant to be. And that becoming, it's not a race. It's not measured in speed. It's measured in presence, in how deeply you're willing to sit with your own soul without trying to escape it. Let me tell you something beautiful. There's no final destination, no point at which you become complete, no moment where you're done learning, healing, evolving. Because life isn't a checklist, it's a rhythm, a cycle, a spiral staircase, a return and return and return to the same truths, deeper each time. And that's not failure, that's wisdom. That's how the universe teaches you, not through sudden lightning bolts, but through echoes, repetition, reminder, reverence. Do you know what the greatest gift of slowing down is? You start to notice again the way the light hits your skin in the morning, the quiet joy of making your own food, the miracle of being able to cry, to laugh, to feel, the sound of your own heartbeat, steady, unhurried, alive. And suddenly, you realize you didn't need to fix yourself, you just needed to return to yourself. And every day you wake up and do that, even just a little, you build a life rooted in wholeness, not hustle, on truth, not image, in peace, not performance. If no one has told you this today, you're already doing it, even if it doesn't look like much, even if you had to start over, even if today all you did was breathe through the pain. You're not failing, you're not falling behind, you're arriving, slowly, softly, fully. And the world, it doesn't need a faster you. It doesn't need a faster you. It doesn't need a shinier you. It needs this you, the one who's learning to live with heart, to move with intention, to repeat what matters, no matter how small. Because this you is free. There's a story I never tell enough. It doesn't start with a dramatic failure. It doesn't end with a viral victory. It's quieter than that, gentler, more human. It's the story of someone, maybe like you, who woke up one morning and whispered, "I want something different, not louder, not faster, not bigger, just different." More peace, more presence, more truth. And instead of chasing the next life hack, instead of cramming more into an already overfilled schedule, they did something radical. they slowed down. It didn't change everything overnight. It didn't impress the algorithm. It didn't spark a documentary or a million views, but it did do something even more sacred. It saved them from the exhaustion, from the comparison, from the constant feeling of not being enough. Because when you slow down, you don't just give your body rest, you give your soul a chance to breathe. Let's talk about breath. It's the first repetition you ever knew. In, out, long before you learned your name, before you knew how to spell success, before you earned a single gold star. You were breathing perfectly, completely, without effort, without judgment. That breath, it was your birthright, your rhythm, your grounding force. And it still is. But somewhere along the way, you started holding your breath in moments of fear, in moments of shame, in moments where the world taught you that being yourself wasn't safe. And now, as you slow down, you're remembering what was never really lost. The power of your own breath, the repetition that never left you, the rhythm that says, we're still here. There's something deeply humbling about learning to be present. Because when you stop chasing the next thing, you're left with this moment, this conversation, this sip of tea, this stretch in your back, this glance at your reflection. And in that moment, you have a choice: to criticize or to cherish, to perform or to participate, to escape or to embrace. And that choice, it's not a one-time decision. It's made in repetition every single day, in every single moment, in every tiny act of returning. Let's talk about kindness to yourself. Not the kind you post about, not the kind you show when everything's going well, but the kind that whispers, even if you mess it all up today, I will still love you. That's a radical promise, and it's hard to keep, because self-kindness is not always intuitive, especially if you were raised on performance, especially if your worth was tied to results. But here's the secret: you don't have to feel it to practice it. You just have to repeat it. So when you miss the gym, be kind. When you snap at someone you love, be kind. When you fall back into an old habit, be kind. Not because it excuses the behavior, but because it builds the relationship. And trust, like everything else that matters, is built through repetition. You know, we often wait for life to give us a big green light, something external that says, okay, now you can start. Now you're ready. Now you're allowed to take yourself seriously. But the truth, that green light doesn't come. Or if it does, it comes way too late. So what if, right here, right now, you became your own permission? What if you said, I don't have to earn this anymore. I get to be whole. I get to go slow. I get to repeat what matters, even if nobody else sees it. What if you were the one who finally stopped waiting? Because here's what I know to be true. There will always be distractions. Your phone, your doubts, your fear, your fatigue, your past. But the difference between who you are and who you want to become has never been about your circumstances. It's been about your choices. The ones you make when it's not easy. The ones you make when it's boring. The ones you make when no one's cheering you on. The ones you repeat with no promise of reward, simply because they feel right. That's integrity. That's power. That's mastery. And it's built slowly. One small moment. One deep breath. One honest yes. At a time. Let's talk about identity. At some point you stop trying to become someone else. You stop idolizing the highlight reels. You stop molding yourself into whatever will be most liked. And you start doing something far braver. You begin remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. And that remembering, it happens not through reinvention, but through repetition. The rituals that ground you, the truths you return to, the small holy routines that remind your soul, I know who I am. You light the same candle, you take the same walk, you speak the same affirmation, you choose the same quiet over and over again. And with each act, you chip away the noise until what's left is you, unfiltered, unhurried, unmistakably real. There's a final promise I want you to make, not to me, not to your goals, not even to your future self, but to the part of you that's been with you through every version and never left. Make this promise: I will stay with you. Even when it's slow, even when it's hard, even when it feels like nothing's changing, I will stay, because in the end, it's not the breakthrough that defines your life. It's not the climax moment that determines your worth. It's the small, repetitive, quiet choice to stay, to return, to try again and again and again, until one day, without fanfare, you look around and realize you didn't just become the person you wanted to be. You became the person you always were. You just needed to slow down long enough to meet them.